It's time again for some spring cleaning. I'll start by shipping this little avocado in this big box to one of you. Later on, we'll find out who, but first, let's learn something new together. In this video, we get to check out the newest innovation in screen printing. I'll get us the answers to the questions we are all asking. We'll look at what some others are doing with it, and don't miss your chance to win as I challenge myself to develop, make, and sell a product as a first-time screen printer to raise the funds to buy a brand new kit for one of you. Or, if I fail, I'll be forced to sell my ridiculously expensive best friend, Norman. Buckle up, because I packed a lot in this video. Screen printing is a practice that has been on my radar for a long time now. Some of my favorite YouTubers turned me on to it over 10 years ago when I was just a wee lad. But there was always one thing that kept me from trying. It requires a lot of stuff and it can take up a lot of valuable space. Until, maybe, now? XTool has just put out a new product that takes the ancient practice of screen printing and brings it to the future by cutting out a lot of the antiquated steps by using lasers, sizing it down to a much more compact and intuitive operation. But why screen printing if I already have a laser engraver? I think they might actually pair quite well together. Here are 3 reasons I can think of. 1. Laser engraving does not actually provide you with the wide variety of colors you can get from screen printing inks. 2. Even though the setup time might seem slow at first, once you get going screen printing, you can actually reproduce images in just a matter of seconds, regardless of size. And number 3, it gives you a competitive advantage. This gives you that extra wow factor in any market to attract customers who are looking for a one-stop shop for their engraving and printing needs. As I pull this setup out of the package, let me tell you how I plan to do something a little different than what everyone else has already done. I wanted to give myself a little challenge. I must use this setup to pay itself off by developing, making, and selling one single product. With my new business technique I coined from Chick-fil-A of doing one product, doing it efficiently, and doing it well. If I succeed, I will use the profits to personally buy a brand new multicolor screen printer kit and have it shipped directly to one of you. Or, if I fail, I will very reluctantly be forced to sell my insanely expensive naked cat, Norman, to fund the purchase instead. I'm sure pricing will go up, but currently the basic kit is $300 and the multicolor kit is $530. The team at XTool sent me the multicolor kit with all the bells and whistles. So even though I may not use everything in this package, let's set our goal on the high end at $530. See if I can raise the money to buy another and ship it out to one of you. Now, with man's best friend on the line here, I need you to give me some time to put together my game plan. I need time to focus, develop, and sell my one single product. So, while you give me a minute, I'll have some of my fellow creators here on YouTube show you what the screen printer can do. If you're not already following these channels, you definitely should be. They will all be tagged in the video description, and I highly recommend subscribing to all of them. First up, I wanted to show you 6-8 Woodworks. I was amazed at the huge amount of t-shirts he was able to screen print. I also wanted to show you the flash dryer that he purchased, which can be used to speed dry and cure your inks extremely quickly. Though you can also use a heat press, iron, hair dryer, heat gun, or just let them air dry. Here is an example of how you can mix different color inks to create unique prints, like this one here. This is just a look at how many shirts he was able to produce with this setup. Again, this is 6-8 Woodworks. And would you check that out? At this point in my edit, he is only 5,000 subscribers away from his silver play button. Let's go over there and see if we can make that happen for him. Secondly, we have Justin Laser. I wanted to show you him because Justin always sprinkles some amazing business knowledge into his videos. In this video, he talks about the concept of value added and how you can use screen printing to add value to your products. I love these notebooks that he did and think they came out really nice and crisp. And I was also really impressed how vivid the white ink looked on these black koozies that he did. Again, this is Justin Laser. Go check him out. Third on my list, I have Laser Engraving 911. I wanted to pop in here and show you the results they were able to get screen printing this adorable image of their dog, Coco. They did this on a tote bag in black and it came out really good looking. But I was really impressed how crisp this gold ink came out on this leatherette that they bought from JDS Supplies. Talk about value added. I know a lot of you are doing leather hat patches, and can you imagine how much you would stand out from the competition if you had screen printed hat patches with full color? Thank you, Laser Engraving 911, for showing us that. Last on my list is Lee Stewart. Even though he is not using the XTool screen printer, I stumbled upon his channel and he is a professional screen printer who focuses on all about running a screen printing business. I wanted to show you this video he did showing how he prints on his shipping boxes for the products he ships out. I normally just slap some thermal labels with a business logo on my boxes, but these look extremely professional. What a great way to make your business stand out. I am definitely going to try that out. Now that I'm all inspired by seeing what everyone else is doing with the screen printer, it's my turn. I struggled for a long time to come up with a unique product that utilizes screen printing. The first things that came to my head were shirts, hats, and other clothing items, but I wanted to stand out from what the majority was making. What if I made something I would want for myself? A while back, a podcast I was listening to had on a knife maker named Quentin Middleton, and he shared a quote that has stuck with me ever since.
Money comes and money goes, and when time comes, it just goes.
This quote was most likely a huge catalyst for why I decided to let Chad's Custom Creations, the business, go. I wanted to use that quote and have it around as a daily reminder because as a business owner, I think it's important to keep our eyes on what's really important, and that is our time. Time. That's when it hit me. I could make and design a clock with that saying on it. So I started researching, designing, and ordered my clock parts. I kept changing the outer shape of the clock before finally deciding on an octagon to symbolize a stop sign, to remember to stop and go ahead and spend my time wisely. I went back and forth with different fonts, especially when my wife walked by and let me know that my design needed some work. And finally, we settled on this design here, which even she approved of. I imported my design into XTool Creative Space, mirrored the image since I'd be engraving the back side of the screen, placed my screen inside the S1, and got it started. I engraved this inside the house, vented right outside the window, and I and everyone in the family was relieved that there was no smell at all. Now I should have set the processing to engrave by layer, but I didn't, so it engraved each element separately, making it take over 2 hours. When this large engraving with the correct settings should have only taken about 1 hour, which was faster than I even expected, and is much faster than the traditional method for screen printing. With the screen finished, I took it outside to my workshop, and I'm gonna take some compressed air, and I'm just gonna use that to blow out the leftover residue. All right, now that it's all cleaned up, we're gonna have this side facing up, and then it goes into the mechanism. And then you just clamp these down, and that holds it in place. With all the adjustments you can make with this thing, it makes it really easy to get your objects lined up perfectly. I used my table saw to cut some 1/2-inch red oak plywood into 10.5-inch squares. Then I placed one under the screen printer and set it to the height to just barely hovering above the wood. The inks that came with the kit are for fabrics, and probably could have worked, but I ordered some acrylic inks off of Amazon that I thought would be a better fit for the wood. First, I stirred the ink, placed it above the design, pulled that across to flood the design, placed it down onto the wood, pushed the squeegee up through the design, lifted the screen up, then flooded the design again to keep it from drying out. I think my technique was off somehow because my screen ended up getting way too much ink through it, which caused my first attempt to blow out the majority of my design. So I changed my technique and stopped pre-flooding the screen, which gave me a much better result. When you are all done, you can scoop up all the unused ink back into the container. Once finished with the last one, I went inside to clean the screen. I used our bathtub with a shower head sprayer, and this worked pretty good, but later on I found out that doing this outside makes for a much quicker and easier cleanup. I let the screen completely dry. I used some tape to block the parts of the print that I didn't want to get any of the white ink I would be printing next, which would be offset up and to the left to create a shadow effect, if the white would print opaque enough to cover the black. I got everything set up using the fine adjustments, then repeated the same steps as before, but this time with the white ink. And to my surprise, it came out perfectly.
Oh, that looks awesome. Heck yeah.
I did one more, then this time decided I would attempt to clean it up outside with a hose, and this was much easier than bringing it indoors to the bathtub. Okay, now that I have the process figured out, I sanded down the messed up ones from earlier and went back to the table saw to cut the rest of my 20 squares that I needed. Now we get a chance to see how fast you can get things going with a screen printer. I set up a stopwatch to keep track, and even though I'm brand new and have no clue what I'm doing, I was able to get my first color on all 18 in just 14 minutes. Now, you can't see it, but off screen, my children came home from their friend's house while I was printing my last clock, and this is the moment my son smeared his finger right through the wet black ink. Now, inside my head, I was about to blow up and yell at the poor, curious boy. But thankfully, I kept quiet, which I think may have actually scared him even more. But after pondering it for a minute and looking at that quote, I realized the finger smudge was an even better reminder for me, as it shows that where I really should use my time is with my children, especially when they are young. So I went inside and told him I wasn't mad at him, and that it was actually my favorite one now, and this would be the one that I would buy to keep for myself. XTool says you can use these screens with any other laser. Let's test that. I put mine into my 90-watt CO2 laser and ran a test engrave to find out if it's true. The test came out great. I'll go ahead with 400 millimeters a second at 75% power. I decided I would engrave a few of my logos and a functional QR code as a test, and they all engraved in just under 11 minutes. I was inspired by the shipping boxes that we saw Lee Stewart making earlier, so I decided I would make some for my business, Engravings to You. My first one came out pretty good, but my second one shows I still need a lot of practice on my technique. My wife came by and wanted to give it a try, and she is a natural, as her first and second prints were better than all of mine.
Good job.
Proud of you.
I saw this technique online where you can screen print onto rounded objects, so I attempted this with a tumbler, here with my logo. I think with some practice I can make it happen, but my first attempt came out pretty unacceptable. Now, what about if you run out of screens? At the time of this recording, the extra screens are listed online for sale for $40 for 4 extra screens, so that's $10 a screen. I guess that seems like a fair price, especially for the convenience. But I was curious to see if we could recycle the used screens anyways. So I ordered some emulsion remover, some emulsion, a scoop applier, and a screen scrubber, and I attempted to see if it's a viable option for anyone interested in doing it too. The emulsion remover worked great. With 2 attempts at cleaning, the XTool emulsion came right off. The original engraving is showing up, but I don't think that will cause any issues as the screen itself is still letting the light through. Next, I let it dry and applied the new Ecotex Blue emulsion as quickly as I could inside my workshop with the lights off. I applied it to both the front and the back of the screen, which turned out to be a big mistake, because if you look at the XTool screens, it appears the emulsion is only on the bottom side. Then I placed the screen inside this box, as it's recommended to let it dry overnight without any light hitting the emulsion. The next day, I took the screen out and left it in my workshop with the lights on for a while to hopefully cure the emulsion. Then I used the original XTool settings of 253 millimeters a second, 40% power, and 200 lines per centimeter. And it turned out the setting was not enough to pierce through some parts of the design. I'm placing my bets on the fact that I put emulsion on both sides, causing it to be too thick for the factory settings. Well, that's not good enough. So I cleaned the screen again, applied the emulsion to only the bottom side. This time I placed it in the sunlight right away to see if curing it instantly would work and speed things up. It seemed to do the trick. I engraved it again, and this time the design was completely cleared. I decided to test it out on some old t-shirts and everything else I could get my hands on. A lot of my prints were failing, but it was not because of the emulsion. It was actually this piece of the frame. I finally realized it was sticking up, and once I got that pushed into the right place, the screen could lay flat, and I finally ended up with some prints that confirm that these stainless steel screens are reusable, if you are willing to put in the work and want to maybe save a few bucks. I'll have the links to everything I used in the description if you are wanting to try this for yourself. In the last video, I asked those of you that sat through my whole story about why I closed down Chad's Custom Creations to comment the word avocado, and I was amazed by the response over there. You all are regaining my hopes for the human race, especially when it comes to our attention spans. With over 300 comments to further reinforce community over competition, I decided I would pick a random person that left a avocado comment, box up my favorite healthy treat, and ship that out to one of you as a thank you. Because this channel simply wouldn't exist without people like you. So make sure you check your notifications because I have already commented on the winner's comment asking for their email, and I can't wait forever, so you've got 1 week or I will pass it on to the next person. Alright, now let's get back to the clocks. It was time to cut the clock out. I brought it inside, used the 2 registration dots that I had screen printed earlier, and sent the cut. It was able to cut out officially in just 6 minutes and 50 seconds. My settings were 3mm a second with 100% power and a 6mm drop on the focus. It cut out perfectly, but I ran into one major issue. The clock kit that I had bought was just too short to make it through the 1/2-inch plywood, and it would not allow the nut to thread onto the kit. I pondered this issue for a while, but then realized I could use my router to inset the kit in just a little to make the connection work. I got out my calipers, did some measuring, and designed a router template that I could clamp onto the back of the clocks and route out a pocket, which I did at the wrong angle, so I clamped it up again and rerouted it one more time. But now it worked, and I could put the kit together, and I had a working clock. Now that I have everything figured out, it was time to finish the other 19, so I would have something to try to sell. This time, I decided to pre-finish these before cutting to protect the face from laser residue. Next, it was time to get all of them cut out. At about 7 minutes apiece, it took only 2 hours and 13 minutes to get all of them cut out. After that, I sprayed them again to seal in the burnt edges. Here, I made a dire mistake. With spraying the sides, the small laser cut pieces fell out, so even though I had kept everything together and in order, now it looks like I get to put together 20 little puzzles. After that, I just needed to take some product photos. Just using my iPhone, I did some outside, I attempted to get some unique angles, and used the portrait mode to get some of that sweet looking bokeh. I took it inside, found a nice shelf where I could place a small plant right next to it to give my customers a sense of scale. I know I just talked about how I closed down Chad's Custom Creations on Etsy, so I could focus on my family, but I decided it was time to open that back up with all the old listings disabled. But this time, I could offer just these 19 clocks, digital files like my acrylic stands, maybe some woodworking plans, and other things of interest that those of you watching these videos might find of value. I airdropped all of my images in the 15-second portrait video of the clock over to my Mac Mini and put all of the information in to get it listed online. Now, I know some of you are thinking, you're cheating by using your internet notoriety to sell these clocks. And to that, I'll say, you're not wrong. But when I designed this clock and decided to use that quote, I had me and other business owners in mind, so that's my target audience. And using the tools at my disposal, that's how I'm going to reach that audience. For those of you out there developing products to sell, I have some homework for you. I'll urge you to evaluate the tools at your disposal. What audiences can you already reach in a natural way that does not require a lot of effort? If you can think of one, it's possible your customer base will start to grow just based on word of mouth alone. But to prove that I'm not just here to make money off of this community, all proceeds from the sales of these clocks will be given to someone in the YouTube laser community. So if you think you would benefit from having one of these screen printer setups, leave a comment with the phrase, "I want that." Again, that is, "I want that." Then I'll randomly select one of you to get a brand new XTool multicolor screen printer kit, and whatever else extras I can afford with the profits shipped directly to you. Time will tell if these clocks will actually sell and raise enough money to buy one of these screen printer setups for one of you. As of now, I have not sold a single clock. Well, I guess I sold the one to myself, so there's one sold. So I'm actually at a negative right now. For the materials, it's $160, and I will make it free shipping, so I'll estimate $10 for the 19 packages, which will cost another $190. So our original goal of $530 is right now at negative $350. So it's not looking so good for Norman. As of now, I need to raise $880 to make it to our goal. Let's give it a few weeks, and we will find out in my next video. Did the clock sell out, or is Norman on his way to his new home? So if you're into that sort of thing, I guess you can catch me, and hopefully Norman, on the next one.